The crystal chandeliers sparkled above the crowded ballroom. Men in expensive suits and women in designer gowns laughed and clinked champagne glasses. This was the night everyone in the business world waited for. The annual gala hosted by the two brothers who built one of the biggest tech companies in the country. Richard and Thomas were their names. They stood near the stage, shaking hands with investors and smiling for cameras. Richard was the older one, always serious, always calculating. Thomas was different. He had an easier smile, though his eyes carried something heavy that most people never noticed. The evening was going perfectly. Too perfectly, perhaps. That's when the commotion started near the entrance. A security guard was speaking urgently into his radio. Another rushed toward the main doors. The guests barely noticed at first, too caught up in their conversations and the free-flowing champagne. But the brothers noticed. They always noticed when something was off. A small figure darted through the crowd. A child, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She wore a simple blue dress that looked homemade. Nothing like the designer clothes the other guests wore. In her hand, she clutched an old photograph and a small backpack hung from her shoulders. Security guards tried to catch her, but she was quick. She weaved between the adults like water flowing around rocks. Her eyes were locked on the stage where the two brothers stood. Richard saw her first. His hand gripped Thomas's arm. "We have a situation," he muttered. But before either brother could react, the little girl climbed the steps to the stage. The microphone was right there, set up for their speech. She grabbed it with both hands. The entire ballroom fell silent. "Excuse me." Her small voice echoed through the speakers. Every head turned. Cameras that had been pointed at the wealthy guests now swung toward the stage. "My name is Lily, and I need to talk to you." One of the security guards reached the stage, but Thomas held up his hand. Something in the child's eyes stopped him. A determination that seemed too old for someone so young. Lily held up the photograph. Even from a distance, people could see it showed a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "This is my mama," she said, her voice steady despite the hundreds of people staring at her. "She died 3 months ago." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Some women put their hands over their hearts. This wasn't what anyone expected at a fancy business party. "Before she died," Lily continued, "she told me something important. She said my daddy was a good man, a successful man. She said he didn't know about me, but that wasn't his fault. She showed me this picture of him with his brother, and she said I'd know where to find them." She turned to face Richard and Thomas directly. The brothers stood frozen, their faces pale under the stage lights. "She said one of you is my father." The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Camera phones came out. Flashes went off. Reporters who'd been covering the event as a boring society piece suddenly scrambled for their recording equipment. This was the story of the year. Richard's jaw clenched. His mind raced through possibilities, threats, legal implications. This had to be some kind of scam, some elaborate scheme to embarrass them or extort money. But Thomas couldn't take his eyes off the photograph. The woman's face stirred something in his memory. Something from years ago, buried under layers of business deals and late-night meetings. His hand trembled slightly as he stepped forward. "Let me see that," he said quietly. Lily handed him the photo. Up close, recognition hit him like a punch to the chest. The woman in the picture. Her name was Rebecca. He'd met her 8 years ago during a business trip to Seattle. She'd been a nurse at a hospital he'd visited after a minor accident. They'd talked for hours, then days. For 2 weeks, she'd been the only real thing in his carefully constructed life. Then he'd gotten the call. An emergency back home, a crisis at the company. He'd left in a hurry, promising to return. He'd tried calling her a week later, but her number didn't work anymore. He'd convinced himself she'd lost interest, that he'd been just a distraction for her too. He'd been wrong. "Rebecca," he whispered, staring at the photo. Lily's eyes filled with tears hearing her mother's name. "You remember her?" Richard stepped between them, his protective instincts kicking in. "Now wait just a minute. This is highly irregular. We need to verify everything before jumping to conclusions." A woman in a simple gray suit climbed onto the stage. She had a badge clipped to her jacket. "I'm Patricia Lopez, a social worker with the state. I've been handling Lily's case since her mother passed. Everything she's saying is true. Her mother left detailed documentation, including this photo and letters explaining the situation." The ballroom buzzed with whispers. This was real. This wasn't some publicity stunt or joke. A little girl had just crashed the city's biggest social event to find her father. Thomas knelt down to Lily's eye level. He studied her face, seeing features he recognized. The shape of her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw, even the way she held herself, brave despite being terrified. "What was your mother like?" he asked softly. Lily's voice wobbled but didn't break. "She was the best. She made me pancakes every Sunday. She worked really hard at the hospital helping people. She always said kindness was more important than money." A tear rolled down her cheek. "She got sick last year. Cancer. She tried really hard to fight it, but it spread too fast. Before she died, she made me promise to find you. She said every child deserves to know their father." Richard felt his chest tighten. He glanced at his brother and saw tears in Thomas's eyes. His own cynicism wavered. This child was either telling the truth or she was the best actress he'd ever seen. "We'll need to do a DNA test," Richard said, his voice gentler now, "to be certain. You understand that, right?" Lily nodded. "Miss Patricia said you'd probably want that." "That's okay. Mama said you were smart businessmen and smart people check their facts." Thomas stood up, still holding the photograph. His hand rested on Lily's shoulder. "Where are you staying now?" "Foster care," Patricia answered. "She's been with a temporary family, but it's not permanent. We've been trying to locate any relatives." "No," Thomas said firmly. "She's not going back there tonight. She'll stay at my house, in a guest room. With proper supervision, of course. Whatever needs to happen legally, we'll make it happen. But this child is not spending another night wondering if anyone wants her." Richard opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He saw the look on his brother's face. The same look Thomas had worn when they were kids and he'd brought home stray animals to save them. Except this wasn't a stray. This might be family. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Thomas gently took Lily's hand. "Are you hungry? I bet they have better food here than anything you've had today." Lily's stomach growled in response, and despite everything, she giggled. It was a sound that seemed impossibly pure in that moment. As they walked off the stage together, cameras continued flashing. Reporters shouted questions. Richard followed behind them, already on his phone calling lawyers and arranging for the fastest DNA test money could buy. The gala continued, but nobody could focus on business anymore. They'd all just witnessed something that would be talked about for years. A little girl brave enough to walk into a room full of strangers and demand the truth, and two brothers whose perfect evening had just become the most complicated night of their lives. In the car later, Lily sat between the two brothers, still clutching her mother's photograph. She looked up at Thomas with hope and fear mixed in her eyes. "What if the test says you're not my dad?" she whispered. Thomas squeezed her hand gently. "Then we'll figure that out together. But something tells me your mother knew exactly what she was doing when she sent you to find us. And for the first time since her mother died," Lily felt something she'd almost forgotten. She felt like maybe, just maybe, everything might actually be okay. The guest house on Thomas's estate was bigger than any place Lily had ever lived. It had 3 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and windows that overlooked a garden with lights that twinkled like stars. Patricia stayed with her that first night, making sure she felt safe and comfortable. Lily couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her mama, about the promise she'd made, about the look on Thomas's face when he'd seen the photograph. There was recognition there, pain even, but was he really her father? The next morning, a doctor came to collect DNA samples. It was quick and painless, just a swab inside her cheek. Thomas did the same. Then came the waiting. "Results take about 48 hours with the rush we put on it," Richard explained. He sat across from Lily in the main house's living room, his arms crossed. He still wasn't convinced this wasn't some elaborate scheme, though he couldn't figure out what an 8-year-old would gain from it. Thomas brought Lily hot chocolate. Real hot chocolate made from scratch, not the powdered stuff from a packet. "I want to know about your mother," he said, sitting down beside her. "If you're comfortable talking about her." Lily wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Start from the beginning. How did she raise you? What was your life like?" So Lily told him. She talked about their small apartment above a bakery, how they'd wake up to the smell of fresh bread every morning. She described how her mother worked long shifts at the hospital, but always made time for bedtime stories. How they'd go to the park every Sunday and feed the ducks. How her mother taught her to be kind, to work hard, to never give up. Thomas listened to every word. As she spoke, memories came flooding back. Rebecca had been kind, genuinely deeply kind. She'd seen him not as a billionaire or a business mogul, but as just Thomas. A man who was tired and lonely and pretending he wasn't? Did she ever talk about me? He asked quietly. Lily nodded. Sometimes. Usually late at night when she thought I was asleep, but I could hear her crying. She'd say things like, I wish I could have told you and you would have loved her. I didn't understand then. I thought maybe she was talking about someone who died. I didn't know she meant you. Richard shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He was starting to see the bigger picture and he didn't like it. Did your mother try to contact you? He asked Thomas. I thought about it, Thomas admitted. I tried calling once, maybe a week after I left Seattle. Her number was disconnected. I figured she'd moved on, that what we had wasn't as important to her as it was to me. Or someone stopped her messages from reaching you, Richard said grimly. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to have our IT department pull records from 8 years ago. Phone logs, emails, everything. If someone interfered, I want to know who. While Richard made calls, Thomas spent the day with Lily. He taught her how to play chess, surprised by how quickly she picked it up. They walked around the estate and she told him about school, about her friends back in her old neighborhood, about how she missed her mother every single day. The worst part is the little things, Lily said as they sat by the pond, watching koi fish swim in lazy circles. Like I'll see something funny and want to tell her about it. Or I'll have a bad dream and reach for her, but she's not there. Miss Patricia says that's normal. That grief comes in waves. But the waves feel really big sometimes. Thomas felt his throat tighten. I lost my parents when Richard and I were young. Not as young as you, but young enough that it felt like the world ended. I remember that feeling, reaching for someone who isn't there anymore. Does it get better? Lily asked, her voice small. It gets different, Thomas said honestly. The pain doesn't disappear, but you learn to carry it. And you find new people to reach for, not to replace the ones you lost, but to add to your life, to help you carry the weight. That evening, Richard burst into the house with a laptop and a look of cold fury on his face. I found it. I found exactly what happened. He turned the screen toward Thomas. There were dozens of call logs, all from a Seattle number, all blocked. Emails that had been diverted to spam and never flagged. Even a certified letter that had been marked as returned to sender, without ever reaching Thomas's desk. Karen Winters, Richard said, naming their former assistant. Remember her? The one we fired 6 years ago for embezzling and falsifying records. Thomas's face went pale. She blocked everything? Every attempt Rebecca made to contact you. Phone calls, emails, a letter, all of it. Richard's jaw clenched. Karen had access to your communications then. She was filtering everything, supposedly to protect you from random people seeking money or attention. But this wasn't random. These attempts went on for months. Rebecca was persistent. She tried so hard to reach you. Lily looked between the two brothers, trying to understand. My mama tried to tell you about me? Thomas knelt in front of her, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. She did, sweetheart. She tried many times. I never got those messages. I never knew. If I had known, I would have been there. For your first breath, your first step, your first day of school, all of it. I would have been there. A tear rolled down Lily's cheek. She thought you didn't want us. She used to cry about it, but she always said maybe it was for the best, because you had an important life and we might just complicate things. No, Thomas said firmly, taking her small hands in his. You wouldn't have complicated anything. You would have made everything better. You and your mother deserved so much more than what happened. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, the brothers sat in Thomas's study. Richard poured them both a drink, something they rarely did. The weight of the situation pressed down on them. Even if the DNA test comes back positive, Richard said carefully, being a father isn't something you can just decide to do overnight. It's not like running a company. You can't just learn the rules and execute a plan. I know that, Thomas said. But what choice do I have? If she's mine, and I think we both know she is, then I have to try. She's already lost her mother. I won't let her feel abandoned again. Wanting to try and knowing how to try are two different things, Richard pointed out. That kid has been through trauma. She needs stability, therapy, understanding. She needs someone who can be there emotionally, not just financially. Thomas stared into his glass. You think I can't do it? I think you've spent the last decade building walls around yourself. I think you work 16-hour days because you're afraid to stop and feel things. I think becoming a father overnight is going to force you to tear down every defense mechanism you've built. Maybe I need that, Thomas said quietly.
Maybe we both do.
When did we become the kind of men who don't have time for life, who measure everything in profit margins and market shares? Mom and Dad wouldn't recognize us anymore. Richard was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Best therapists, best schools, but also actually being present, actually showing up. Can you commit to that? I don't have a choice, Thomas said. That little girl walked into our gala and changed everything. I can't go back to who I was before. I don't want to. The DNA results came back the next afternoon. Patricia was there when they opened them. Richard read the document twice, then handed it to Thomas. 99.9% probability of paternity. Lily was his daughter. Thomas sat down heavily on the couch. It was one thing to suspect it, to feel it in his gut. It was another to see it in black and white. Scientific proof that 8 years ago, he'd helped create this remarkable little human being and he'd missed every moment of her life so far. We should tell her, Patricia said gently. She's been waiting. She needs to know. They found Lily in the garden drawing pictures with colored pencils. She looked up as they approached, and Thomas saw the fear in her eyes. Fear that the test would say no, fear that she'd be sent back to foster care, fear that her mother had been wrong. He knelt beside her, just like he'd done at the gala. Hey, sweetheart. We got the results back. Lily's hand gripped her pencil so tightly her knuckles turned white. And, Thomas smiled through his tears, your mama was right. She knew exactly what she was talking about. I'm your dad, Lily. Scientifically, legally, in every way that matters. I'm your father. The pencil fell from her hand. For a moment, she just stared at him as if she couldn't quite believe it was real. Then she launched herself into his arms, sobbing. Not sad tears this time. Relief. Joy. The weight of uncertainty finally lifting from her small shoulders. Thomas held her tight, rocking her gently. Richard stood a few feet away, his arms crossed, but even he had to wipe at his eyes. Patricia smiled, making notes on her paperwork. This was the outcome she'd hoped for. We have a lot to figure out, Thomas said when Lily finally pulled back. Legal stuff, school where you'll live permanently. But I promise you this, you're not alone anymore. You have me. You have Uncle Richard. You have a family now. Can I still talk about Mama? Lily asked, her voice wobbling. Can I still miss her? Always, Thomas assured her. Your mama was an incredible woman who raised an incredible daughter. We're going to make sure you never forget her. In fact, I want to learn everything about her. Every story, every memory, because she gave me the greatest gift in the world. She gave me you. Lily hugged him again. Over her shoulder, Thomas met Richard's eyes. His brother nodded once. They were. The first few weeks were harder than anyone expected. Thomas moved Lily into his house permanently, giving her the biggest guest bedroom and telling her to decorate it however she wanted. He took her shopping for furniture and clothes and toys, thinking that providing things would make her happy. But Lily didn't seem happy. She was quiet, distant. She picked at her food during dinner and spent hours alone in her room, looking at old photos of her mother. She's grieving, Patricia explained during one of her check-in visits, and she's adjusting to a completely new life. New home, new school, new father. That's overwhelming for anyone, especially a child who just lost her mother. Thomas felt helpless. He could close billion-dollar deals. He could predict market trends. But he had no idea how to help his daughter feel better.
He tried buying her more things.
A new tablet, art supplies, a bicycle. Nothing worked. Richard watched his brother struggle and finally pulled him aside. Stop trying to fix this with money. If that's not what she needs, then what does she need? Thomas asked, frustrated. I'm trying everything I can think of. Time, attention, presence, Richard said. When's the last time you just sat with her? No agenda, no shopping trip, just being there? Thomas realized he couldn't remember. He'd been so busy trying to make her life perfect that he hadn't just been present in it. That night he knocked on Lily's door. She was sitting on her bed surrounded by photos spread out like a protective circle around her. Can I come in? He asked. She shrugged, which he took as a yes. He sat on the floor beside her bed, not pushing, just being there. After a long silence, Lily spoke. I got sent home from school today. Thomas's eyebrows shot up. What? Why didn't anyone tell me? They called, but you were in a meeting. Your assistant said she'd have you call back. Lily picked at a loose thread on her blanket. You never did. Guilt hit Thomas like a freight train. I'm sorry. What happened? Some girls were making fun of my old clothes. They said my shoes were from a discount store and asked if I was poor. I told them my mama bought me these shoes and they were perfect. They laughed. Lily's voice cracked. So I pushed one of them. I know I shouldn't have, but I was so mad. Thomas climbed onto the bed beside her, careful not to disturb the photos. Being angry is okay. Pushing isn't the right way to handle it, but I understand why you felt that way. The principal called me to her office. She was nice about it, but she said I needed to learn to control my temper. Then she said maybe I was having trouble adjusting to my new circumstances and asked if things were okay at home. Lily looked up at him with tears in her eyes. I didn't know what to say. Are things okay? I have everything I could want here. A big room, nice clothes, good food. But I miss my old life. I miss my friends. I miss my mama. Does that make me ungrateful? No, sweetheart. That makes you human. Thomas put his arm around her. I've been doing this all wrong, haven't I? I thought giving you stuff would make you happy. But you don't need stuff. You need to feel like you belong. Like this is really your home. Lily leaned against him. The kids at my new school are different. They talk about vacations to places I've never heard of. They have drivers and nannies. They look at me like I don't fit. And they're right. I don't. Then we'll find a different school. One where you feel comfortable. But you said this was the best school. The one with the best teachers and programs. I don't care about that anymore, Thomas said firmly. I care about you being happy. If this school makes you miserable, we'll find somewhere else. Somewhere you can be yourself. Over the next few days, they visited several schools. Some were too formal, some too stuffy. Then they found one that was different. It was smaller, more diverse, with kids from all kinds of backgrounds. The teachers seemed warm and genuinely interested in their students. Lily smiled for the first time in weeks when they toured the art room. Can I really go here instead? She asked hopefully. If this is where you want to be, then yes. Things got a little better after the school change. Lily made a friend named Sophie, whose mother was a teacher and whose family lived in a regular house in a regular neighborhood. Sophie didn't care about brand names or vacation homes. She just liked to draw and read and make up stories, same as Lily. But there were still hard days. Days when Lily cried for her mother. Days when she snapped at Thomas for no reason. Days when she locked herself in her room and wouldn't come out. Richard surprised everyone by being the one who could reach her during these times. He'd knock on her door with cookies he'd baked himself and sit on the floor outside her room, telling her stories about when he and Thomas were kids, about the trouble they got into, about when their own parents died and how angry and lost they'd felt. I threw a chair through a window once, Richard admitted through the door one evening. I was so mad at the universe for taking them away. The grief counselor said anger was part of the process, but that didn't make it hurt less. The door opened a crack. Lily peeked out, her eyes red from crying. You threw a chair? Straight through. Got grounded for a month. But you know what? My uncle, who was taking care of us, he didn't yell. He just sat with me in the broken glass and let me cry. Sometimes that's all you need. Someone willing to sit in the mess with you. Lily opened the door wider. Will you sit with me? Of course, kiddo. They sat together on her floor and Richard listened as Lily talked about her mother. The real stuff. Not just the happy memories, but the hard parts too. How scary it had been watching her get sicker. How helpless Lily had felt. How angry she was that her mother had to die when other kids got to keep both their parents. I feel bad for being angry at her, Lily whispered. She didn't want to leave me. It wasn't her fault. You can be angry and still love her, Richard said gently. Those feelings can exist at the same time. Grief isn't logical. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes it makes you feel things that don't make sense. That's okay. Thomas stood in the hallway listening. He'd been so focused on trying to make Lily happy that he hadn't given her space to be sad, to be angry, to grieve properly. Richard understood what Lily needed in a way Thomas was still learning. One Saturday morning, Lily came downstairs to find Thomas sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by old journals. He looked tired, like he'd been up all night. What are those? She asked. Your mother's journals, Thomas said softly. Patricia gave them to me weeks ago, but I was afraid to read them. afraid of what they'd say, but last night I finally opened them. Lily sat down beside him. What do they say? Thomas smiled through tears. They say your mother was even more incredible than I remembered. Listen to this. He picked up one journal and read aloud. Lily turned 3 today. We had a picnic in the park because I couldn't afford anything fancy. She said it was the best birthday ever. She doesn't know yet that we're different from other families, that most kids have 2 parents and bigger homes and more toys. Right now she just knows she's loved. I hope I can keep that innocence alive as long as possible. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She always made me feel rich even when we didn't have much money. That's because you were rich, Thomas said. Rich in the things that actually matter. Love, time, attention, things I'm still learning how to give properly. He turned to another page. Here's another one from when you were 5. Lily asked about her father today. Really asked, not just the casual questions. I told her he was a good man who didn't know she existed. She asked if we could find him. I had to explain it's not that simple, but she said, if he's good like you say, won't he want to know me? Out of the mouths of babes. She's right, of course. I'm just scared. Scared he's moved on. Scared he won't believe me. Scared he won't want her. But mostly scared that he will want her and I'll have to share her with someone else. Thomas closed the journal. Your mother loved you so much. Everything she did, every choice she made, was about protecting you and giving you the best life she could. Even sending you to find me after she was gone. That must have terrified her, but she did it anyway because she wanted you to have family. Do you wish she'd told you sooner? Lily asked quietly. Thomas thought about it carefully. I wish I'd known. I wish I could have been there for both of you. But I understand why she didn't push harder after I didn't respond. She thought she was doing the right thing. And in a way, she gave me a gift by raising you the way she did. You're kind and brave and strong because of her. If I'd raised you from birth, you might have turned out spoiled and entitled, like some of the kids at your old school. Lily giggled a little at that. Uncle Richard says you were kind of spoiled when you were younger. Uncle Richard talks too much, Thomas said, but he was smiling. You know what I think we should do? What? I think we should honor your mother properly. Not just keeping her memory alive in this house, but doing something bigger, something that helps other people the way she helped people at the hospital. Lily's eyes brightened. Like what? What if we created a foundation in her name? Something that helps single parents who are sick, helps with medical bills, childcare, things like that. Your mother struggled alone. We could make sure other parents don't have to. Really? We could do that? We have the money and the connections. But more importantly, we have the reason. Your mother's story matters. Let's make sure it helps other people. For the 3 months after the DNA results, things seemed to be settling into a rhythm. Lily was doing better at her new school. Thomas had cut back his work hours to be home for dinner every night. Richard had become a permanent fixture in their lives, showing up for movie nights and homework help without being asked. But then came the day that changed everything again. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Thomas was in his home office when he got a call from the school. Lily hadn't shown up for her last 2 classes. She wasn't in the nurse's office or the library or anywhere on campus. She was just gone. Thomas's heart stopped. He called Richard, who immediately activated their security team. They checked cameras, called her friends, alerted the school administration. Nothing. No one had seen her leave. She'd simply disappeared after lunch. 2 hours passed. 2 hours that felt like 2 years. Thomas paced his living room, his phone pressed to his ear, coordinating with everyone he could think of. Richard handled the police report, though they said it was too early to officially call her a runaway. Then Thomas had a thought. A memory of Lily talking about visiting her mother's grave. She'd mentioned it was near their old neighborhood, at a cemetery she could walk to from their apartment. I know where she is, he said suddenly. He drove faster than he should have, Richard beside him gripping the door handle. The cemetery was on the other side of town, in a part of the city Thomas rarely visited. Rows of modest headstones stretched across gentle hills. It took them 20 minutes to find the right section, and there she was. Sitting cross-legged in front of a simple gray stone, her school backpack beside her, her face streaked with tears. Thomas approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. Lily? She didn't look up. I know I shouldn't have left school. I know you're probably mad, but I just needed to talk to her. Thomas sat down on the grass beside her, not caring that his expensive suit would get dirty. Richard hung back, giving them space. I'm not mad. I was scared. Terrified, actually, but I'm not mad. I can't remember her voice anymore, Lily said, her voice breaking. It's only been a few months and I can't remember exactly how she sounded. I have videos on my old phone, but it's not the same as remembering. What if I forget everything about her? Thomas felt his chest tighten. Is that why you came here? I wanted to feel close to her. At your house, everything is so nice and new and perfect. There's nothing there that belonged to her. Nothing that smells like her or reminds me of our life together. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing her twice. Once when she died, and again now that I'm living somewhere she never was. The words hit Thomas hard. He'd been so focused on giving Lily a better life that he hadn't realized he was erasing the old one in the process. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't think about that. They sat in silence for a while, the wind rustling through nearby trees. Finally, Thomas spoke. Tell me about her. Everything you remember. Her voice, her laugh, the way she did things. Tell me so we can both remember together. So Lily talked. She described how her mother hummed while cooking, always off-key but happy. How she smelled like lavender hand cream and hospital antiseptic. How she'd tuck Lily in at night and trace circles on her back until she fell asleep. How she'd dance in the kitchen when her favorite songs came on the radio, pulling Lily up to dance with her even if they were in the middle of washing dishes. Thomas listened to every word, memorizing the details. You know what? He said when she finished. We're going to make sure you never forget any of that. When we get home, we're going to create something. A memory book, maybe, or a room, a space that's all about your mother, with her photos, her favorite things, her story. What do you think? Lily looked at him with red, puffy eyes. Really? You'd do that? Of course. Your mother is part of your story. Part of our story now. She should have a place in our home. Our home, Lily repeated softly. I like that. I've been calling it your house in my head. I didn't realize I could think of it as mine, too. It is yours. All of it. But clearly we need to make it feel more like yours. Let's start by bringing some of your old things from storage. The stuff from your apartment with your mom. Would that help? Lily nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. But these were different tears. Relief. Hope. Richard cleared his throat from where he stood a few feet away. For what it's worth, kid, I think your mom would be proud of you. Running away was dumb, don't get me wrong. But coming here to talk to her? That took guts. I'm sorry I scared you guys, Lily said. I just felt so lost, like I didn't belong anywhere anymore. Not in my old life because Mama's gone and not in the new life because it doesn't feel real yet. Thomas pulled her into a hug. You belong with us. It might not feel real yet, but it will. We just need to build it together. Not me deciding everything and you just going along with it. Actually, together. They drove home as the sun was setting. Thomas called the school to let them know Lily was safe and would return tomorrow. Then he did something he'd never done before. He called his assistant and told her to cancel all his meetings for the rest of the week. Not reschedule, cancel. This week is for my daughter, he said. Nothing is more important than that. The next morning, they went to the storage unit where Lily's belongings from her old apartment were kept. Thomas had paid to store everything after her mother died, but they'd never gone through it. Opening the unit was like opening a time capsule. Lily's eyes went wide. Everything's here. I thought it was all gone. I couldn't throw it away, Thomas said. It's your history, your mother's things. They matter. They spent hours going through boxes. Lily found her mother's favorite sweater and immediately put it on, even though it was too big. She found their photo albums, board games they used to play, her mother's collection of recipe cards with handwritten notes in the margins. Thomas found things too. A box of letters, his name on them, never sent. Rebecca's attempts to reach him, documented but never delivered. He read them in silence, each one a knife to his heart. She'd been so hopeful at first. Then confused. Then resigned. I tried, one letter said. I tried so hard to tell you. But maybe this is how it's meant to be. Maybe you were just a beautiful moment in my life, and Lily is the gift I got to keep from that moment. I'll raise her to be strong and kind. And someday if she wants to find you, I'll help her. But for now, she's mine. My little miracle. Thomas wiped his eyes and carefully folded the letter. He'd keep it. They all mattered. Every attempt Rebecca had made was proof of her character, her determination, her love for their daughter. They brought boxes home, filled the spare room beside Lily's bedroom with her mother's things, hung photos on the walls. Created a space that smelled like lavender hand cream because Lily found 3 bottles in her mother's bathroom supplies. "This is her room now," Thomas announced. "Whenever you miss her, you can come here. You can sit with her things. Remember her. Talk to her. Whatever you need." Lily walked through the room, touching everything. Her mother's favorite coffee mug, the blanket from their old couch, a wind chime that had hung on their tiny balcony. "Thank you," she whispered. "This is perfect." That night, Richard came over for dinner. They ordered pizza instead of having the private chef cook something fancy. They ate in the living room, sitting on the floor around the coffee table like normal families did. "I have an idea," Richard said between bites. "For the foundation we're starting. In Rebecca's name." "What kind of idea?" Thomas asked. "What if it's not just about money? What if we create a support network? Match single parents who are sick with volunteers who can help. People who can drive kids to school, help with groceries, sit with them during chemo treatments. The things that money can't buy but that make all the difference." Lily's face lit up. Mama would have loved that. She always said the nurses who talked to her during her treatments meant more than the medicine sometimes. Just having someone there who cared. "Exactly," Richard said. "We can provide financial help, sure. But we can also provide something more valuable. Community, connection, the kind of support Rebecca didn't have when she needed it most." They spent the evening planning. Thomas handled the logistics, Richard managed the legal aspects, and Lily drew pictures of what the foundation's logo should look like. She drew a mother and child holding hands with a circle of other people around them. "Community," she wrote underneath in careful letters. As the week went on, something shifted in Lily. She seemed lighter, more settled. She started calling Thomas Dad without prompting, where before she'd stumbled over what to call him. She joked with Richard, teasing him about his terrible cooking. She invited Sophie over for a sleepover, which had never happened before. On Sunday morning, Thomas found her in her mother's room. She was sitting on the floor looking through a photo album. "Morning, sweetheart. You okay?" "Yeah," Lily said, and she meant it. "I was just thinking about something Mama used to say. She said that love doesn't divide, it multiplies. When you love someone, it doesn't mean you have less love for other people. You just grow more love. That's beautiful. And true. I was worried that loving you and Uncle Richard meant I loved Mama less, but I don't think that's how it works. I can love all of you. My heart is big enough." Thomas sat down beside her. "Your mother was a wise woman, and she raised an amazing daughter. I think she'd like you." 1 year. That's how long it had been since Lily walked into that gala and turned 3 lives upside down. 365 days of mistakes and breakthroughs, tears and laughter, endings and beginnings. The foundation had officially launched. They called it Rebecca's Circle, honoring both her name and her belief that community was everything. In just 12 months, they'd helped 47 families dealing with serious illness. They'd matched volunteers with parents who needed support. They'd paid medical bills and provided childcare, and created a network of people who understood what it meant to struggle alone. Tonight was the first annual gala. Not the stuffy business event the brothers used to host, but a real celebration. The ballroom was filled with families they'd helped, volunteers who'd given their time, and donors who believed in the mission. Kids ran around between the tables while adults laughed and shared stories. Lily stood backstage wearing a simple blue dress, her mother's locket around her neck. She was nervous, really nervous. In a few minutes, she'd have to go out there and speak in front of hundreds of people. Thomas knelt beside her, straightening her collar even though it didn't need straightening. "You don't have to do this if you don't want to. We can have someone else read your speech." "No," Lily said firmly. "I want to do it. I need to do it. For Mama." Richard poked his head backstage. "They're ready for you, kiddo. You've got this." Lily took a deep breath and walked onto the stage, the same stage where she'd confronted 2 strangers a year ago. But nothing was the same now. These weren't strangers anymore. This was her family, her life, her purpose. The crowd quieted as she approached the microphone. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket. She'd written and rewritten this speech a dozen times, wanting to get it just right. "Hi, everyone. My name is Lily, and a year ago I crashed a fancy party to find my dad. Some of you were there. You watched me march up here with a photo of my mom and announce that one of these 2 guys was my father. Looking back, that was kind of crazy. Gentle laughter rippled through the audience, but I had to do it. My mama was gone, and before she died, she made me promise to find him. She said every kid deserves to have family, to know where they come from, to have people who will love them no matter what. Lily paused, gathering her courage. My mama's name was Rebecca. She was a nurse. She helped people every single day, even when she was sick herself. She never had much money, but she had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. She taught me that being rich isn't about what you have in your bank account. It's about what you have in your life. Love, kindness, people who show up when things get hard. Thomas watched from the side of the stage, his heart so full it hurt. Richard stood beside him, arms crossed but eyes suspiciously shiny. When Mama got sick, we didn't have anybody, Lily continued. It was just us. She tried to be strong, but I could see how scared she was. Not just about dying, but about what would happen to me after. That's why she told me about my dad. She knew she couldn't stay, so she made sure I'd have someone. Lily looked directly at Thomas. My dad didn't know about me. That wasn't his fault. Life just happened that way sometimes. But when he found out, he stepped up. He didn't have to. He could have said it was too complicated or too difficult. But he didn't. He chose me. He chose us. She turned back to the audience. This foundation is named after my mama because she understood something important. Nobody should have to fight alone. Parents who are sick need help. Their kids need support. And sometimes what they need most isn't money. It's knowing that someone cares, that someone will show up. Lily held up a notebook, the one covered in her mother's handwriting. This is one of my mama's journals. She wrote in it almost every day. There's this one entry from when I was 5 that I want to share. She opened to a marked page and read, "Today Lily asked me if I ever get lonely. I told her no because I have her. But the truth is, I do get lonely sometimes. Being a single parent is hard in ways people don't talk about. It's not just the money or the exhaustion. It's the weight of every decision resting on one person's shoulders. It's having nobody to turn to when you're scared. It's wishing you had someone to share the small joys with. But then I look at my daughter's face and I remember why I keep going. She's worth every struggle, every sacrifice, every lonely night. I just hope that someday she'll have the kind of community I never did. The kind where nobody has to carry everything alone." Lily closed the journal carefully. That's what Rebecca's circle is about. Making sure parents and kids don't have to carry everything alone. In the past year, we've helped families pay medical bills. We've matched volunteers with parents who need rides to treatment or help with homework, or just someone to talk to. We've created a community just like my mama wished for. She smiled, and it was her mother's smile, warm and genuine. But this isn't just about what we've done. It's about what we can do together. Some of you have already volunteered. Some have donated money. Some have shared your own stories. All of that matters. Every single bit of it makes a difference. Lily looked down at her paper, then decided to speak from her heart instead. A year ago, I was lost. My mama was gone. I didn't know where I belonged. I was scared that maybe I'd always be alone. But then I found my dad, and my Uncle Richard, and all of you. This whole community of people who showed me that family isn't just about blood. It's about showing up. It's about caring. It's about choosing to be there for each other. Her voice wavered slightly. My mama can't be here tonight, but I think she knows what we're doing. I think she's proud, not just of me, but of all of us, for taking her story and using it to help other people, for turning something sad into something good. She pulled the locket from under her collar, holding it up. This was my mama's. Inside is a picture of me when I was 3. On the back, she had them engrave something. It says, "Love multiplies." That was her favorite saying. She believed that loving one person didn't mean you had less love for others, that your heart just grew bigger to make room. Lily looked at Thomas again, then at Richard, then at the audience full of families they'd helped. My heart has grown so much this year. It's big enough for my mama's memory, for my dad and uncle, for all the new people in my life, for this foundation and everyone it helps. Love really does multiply, and that's what Rebecca's circle is all about. Multiplying love, spreading it around, making sure nobody has to face hard times alone. She took a deep breath. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in this mission. And thank you for helping us honor my mama's memory in the best way possible, by being the community she wished she'd had, by being the people who show up. The applause started slowly, then built like a wave. People stood up. Some were crying. Thomas walked onto the stage and pulled Lily into a hug. Richard joined them, wrapping his arms around both of them. Three people who hadn't known they needed each other, now unable to imagine life apart. After the speeches and dinner, Lily found herself surrounded by kids from families the foundation had helped. They asked her questions, wanted to know her story, told her theirs. She listened to each one just like her mother would have done. One little boy, maybe 6 years old, tugged on her dress. "Is your mama really gone?" Lily knelt down to his level. "Yes, she is. But she's still with me in a way. In my memories, in the things she taught me, in the love she gave me that I can now give to other people." "My daddy is sick," the boy said quietly. "I'm scared, I know. Being scared is okay. But you know what? You have people now. This whole foundation full of people who care about you and your dad. You're not alone anymore." The boy hugged her suddenly, and Lily hugged him back, understanding exactly what he needed. Sometimes words weren't enough. Sometimes you just needed someone to hold on to. Later that night, after the gala had ended and the venue had emptied, Thomas, Richard, and Lily sat on the stage steps, too tired to move just yet. "You did good, kid," Richard said, offering Lily a piece of leftover cake on a fancy plate. "Thanks, Uncle Richard. You did good too. All those boring legal papers made this possible." "Boring but necessary," Richard said with a smile. "I'm the behind-the-scenes guy. You and your dad are the faces of this thing." Thomas pulled Lily close. "I was so proud of you tonight. Your mother would have been too. You took the pain of losing her and turned it into something beautiful." "We did," Lily corrected. "All three of us together." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the cleaning crew fold up tables and stack chairs. A year ago, this would have been just another event, another obligation, another night of networking and fake smiles. But everything was different now. "You know what I realized tonight?" Thomas said. "Before Lily, I measured success in dollars and deals. I thought the point of life was to build something bigger, make more money, acquire more companies. But that's not what matters. What matters is sitting here with you two, knowing that we helped real people, made real differences in real lives. You getting soft on me, brother?" Richard teased, but his voice was gentle. "Maybe I am. And you know what? I'm okay with that." Lily yawned, leaning against Thomas's shoulder. "Can we come back here next year? Do this again?" "Absolutely," Thomas promised. "This is just the beginning. We're going to keep growing Rebecca's circle, help more families,